Okay, so we're going to be working on off the Austin MLS, so that's actress. If you have a different MLS source, just go ahead and pull that one up. Some of you may have CTX MLS. If you're with our friends to the north, so that's fine too. They're going to look very similar, so I'll be able to assist you on both of those systems. So go ahead and log yourself in to your MLS. If you don't have MLS access, buddy up with someone next to you. We'll see if this is going to actually stay. May not. Let's see. And then that way, you all get kind of comfortable. Some of you may be really comfortable with using an MLS. Some of you may not be. It's okay either way. We're going to learn together. Any questions before we get started on how to log in or... There we go. That works. Yes. Okay. Yes. Huh? Okay, have you gotten MLS access yet? Okay, give me just a moment. Right? Okay. All right, so make sure all your phones are off. No dings, notifications. I know you all are very, very busy, and that's awesome, but you're giving yourself 1.5 hours today to become awesome at learning how to do a market analysis so you can kill it for your sellers. Go ahead and just log into, go here and, All right, and go ahead and log in. So I know that everyone's going to be super tempted to check emails and text on your awesome Macs. Try to be really focused today because every single step of the market analysis process is going to be imperative to your listing and for your seller. We're going to see if this stays on. I have like a little clip to see if this will stay on. So it might slowly work its way down. We'll see. We'll see how this works. I am Kristen. I know most of you. There are a few new faces in the room. Welcome. Is it not working? Kristen. So you're just going to go here. You might have to just use this. Okay, just remind me tomorrow. Okay. Alexis?
Yes, ma'am.
Will you help me out here and see if we can get him on to the internet and get him logged in? Okay. Are you with Actress or CTX MLS? Actress. Okay. Do you mind? Yeah. Okay. All right. So at this point, most of you are logged in. If you don't have the forms, you need some forms? Yeah. Okay. All right, so everyone should have 2 documents. One is going to be how to do a CMA, a comparative market analysis, and one is going to be how to fill out or how a MLS sheet might look. So that's an example. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. So if anyone else shows up, they may have to partner with y'all on it because I'm out of copies, which is great. What a large class we have. So anyways, my name is Kristen. I'm your assistant team leader and your coach. Many of you have taken classes with me before or sat in my office. Welcome. I'm glad you all are here. The bottom line today is we're going to learn how to do a market analysis. I know some of you have done them before. Some of you have practiced them. Some of you may know exactly what you're doing and maybe you're just looking to kind of refresh on other ideas. There's no perfect way to do a market analysis. The best way to get better and better at it is to continue doing them and is to practice different ways of doing it, listening to the market, reading up on all the things that are happening in your market area. So if you service the Temple Belton area, you're going to want to know what your market is doing because that's going to help you with your market analysis. So before I get started, I'm going to take I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to take kind of some reasons why you guys are here today. What is it that you guys are wanting to know about a market analysis? Is there something specific? So tell me, why are y'all here? Who's willing to? All right, don't everyone raise their hands at once. Cesar.
Price adjustments.
Price adjustments. That's a great one because if we do a market analysis from the very beginning, and we're very upfront with our clients, right, then we don't necessarily have to make a price adjustment. As the market starts to shift, you're going to see more and more of those. So we'll definitely go over on how to, one, hopefully prevent having to do a price adjustment, and two, how do you do another CMA to have to go into the conversation about making a price adjustment. Thank you. What else? Yes, Jennifer.
So I don't do as many listings as I do buyer transactions.
Okay.
So when I do have to do a listing, I struggle with trying to find those comparable properties as far as like how much value do I assign for this oddity, especially.
Okay.
Oh, this has this, or this doesn't have that. How do I assign value for these specific things?
Perfect.
For me, that's a challenge because it seems like I just have all these random strange things and I don't know how to give value for these.
Okay, so we'll touch on some of those things today. I'm also going to urge you to possibly take a class on appraisals. We're going to have one here. I've got to figure out when it's going to be on the schedule, hopefully sooner rather than later. The one thing that I don't want you guys to do is if you don't have an appraiser's license, I don't want you to be an appraiser. Okay, so we're going to talk about what it means, what appraisers kind of look at, and how you can assure that you're doing the best possible market analysis without having to be an appraiser. So great, thank you for that. Who else? Anything? Mary Lynn?
I have one, but I'm not sure if it's beyond the scope.
That's okay, ask.
I have people asking me now that it's tax time,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe they want to protest their taxes. So if you do a CMA form versus the appraisal, or I guess the
Sure.
thought process behind that, or the explanation behind that.
Sure, so market analysis is a way, if you will, to help people protest their taxes. Now, when you're doing a market analysis, you're really reviewing the market. And a lot of times, I'm going to show you how to narrow down your search. And when you're going to protest your taxes, your narrow might look a little different. So if, as we go through, I will remember to go ahead and mention where to narrow as we start to look for things for tax protesting. Great question. Who else? Anything else that y'all want to touch on while we're here? Okay, awesome. So for those of you who came in a little later, make sure that you get onto your MLS. It doesn't matter whether it's Actress or CTX MLS. Either will work. They're both very similar because they both have the same running background, if you will, even though they may look a touch bit different. And really what we're going to do today is we're going to go step by step on how to do a market analysis. What are the search terms you're going to use? Ask questions. If you guys have something going on right now that possibly you're looking on doing a market analysis, use as an example. I'm happy to help there. Okay, so this is definitely a class where I want you to get involved and ask questions. And if I stump you and you're like, wait, I'm confused, go back, raise your hand right away because I really want you guys to understand how to do this. The most important thing for your sellers is what? When you're talking to them, what is the most important thing for them majority of the time? Price. Okay, the bottom line, exactly what I was looking for. It's the bottom line because the price is only one piece of the puzzle, right? When you're doing a 1-to-4 contract, do they only look at what the offer price is? No. What's the offer price? What happens after? Who's paying for title? Who's paying for a home warranty, right? Or a residential service contract. So those are all things that go that are in conjunction with the price point. And it's the bottom line that your sellers are concerned about, right? So what we're doing today is we're going to figure out how could we price a seller so they'll sell. How long do you guys think in the market that we're currently in do sellers have to sell before they may have to look at a price adjustment? 2 weeks? 2 weeks is good. 3 weeks, I use 3 weeks as an example. Right now when it starts to heat up, 2 weeks, it's on the market and people go, why is it still on the market 2 weeks later, right? In some areas, you're still going to see 3 weeks. A good, who knows what to look at to kind of get a feel for the neighborhood? What number are you looking at on the MLS? Days on market. Yes, thank you. Days on market. So if you are looking at days on market, and the average days on market for the price point that you're going to be doing a market analysis on, let's say is 35 days, well, 3 weeks may not be the factor. It may be 3 to 4 weeks, right? So all of this is going to come from knowledge while you're pulling the market analysis. Any questions before we get started? Yes. I am out. Hold on just a second. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's okay. Here's an example of that, and then we'll go through step by step. All right. So I'm so excited we had such a full class today. Look at this. Yay! Okay. This makes me happy, y'all. Okay. Mac users, how do I make this larger? Control plus. Command plus. Is that the Windows? Boom. Can y'all see that? Yes. Okay. All right. Are the lights bugging anybody? I know it's harder as you go up front, but I don't want to turn them too far down. I'm just going to, yeah. There we go. I think that's good. Is that better? Okay, great. All right. Hey, you know what? If he can scoot next to you for now and just watch how she does it on MLS, and I'll walk you through after a while. And then, because I don't want her to miss out. All right. Perfect. Everyone else able to get on their MLS? We good? If not, share with your partner, and I can definitely get with you on how to put this all together. Okay, great. So, you all got, most of you, have a step-by-step. This is also available to you online for those that are out in the internet world. On Connect KW, under the coaching tab, there's a link called Coaching Documents. This has actually been there. It's been there for a while. So you're able to open this up and have a digital copy of this if you need it. But I'm happy to make copies or leave them in your mail folder if you need those as well. So the first step is to understand that there's really no right or wrong way to really do a market analysis. The only wrong way to do it is to guess. Because if you're guessing, I mean, there's not much scientific data to back that up. You're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. I can't even talk today. The other thing too is to go into a listing appointment and just agree to what the seller wants, right? Because what is our I can't even talk. Thank you. Fiduciary responsibility. Where does that land? On us. And what is our responsibility? To know the market and to tell the truth. And to tell the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, right? And for those of us who've gone on quite a few listing appointments, how many times is the seller's thought process on what they're going to be listing at a little bit overzealous? Okay. In fact, when I first got in the industry, I realized that most sellers are pricing about $10,000 to $20,000 over possibly what the market is saying. How could that hurt them later? Sitting on the market.
Well, the market's chasing them.
That's right, exactly. Hopefully, maybe even not, right? Maybe the market's not even chasing them. That's right. That's right. So, and thank you. Exactly. So what it comes down to is if you go in and the seller says, you know, hey, listing agent, potential listing agent, I'm going to list my house at this. And you go, okay, great. Sign here. Let's put it on there. Let's sign here. Let's do it. What did you just do?
Overpriced it.
Possibly overpriced it, which hurts their bottom line. Okay? And that's not the reputation that you guys want. That's not the reputation I want for you guys. So I want you to get real comfortable with this process and understand that, you know, listing and pricing are key to the sustainability and consistency of your business. Okay? Awesome. Okay, so first step, obviously you guys have logged into the MLS. Something else that I do on a side note, I'm going to open another tab. Now, I think that most, if you are on Actress, you'll probably get some of this data in Actress now. I'm not sure if it's available in CTX. You can follow along with me here if you'd like. I'm just going to show you how to do this just in case you're in CTX and the data is not available to you there. Okay, so we're going to go to the CAD. And this example that I gave you is 912 Rusk Road, and it is in Williamson County. So I'm going to go to Williamson County Appraisal District.
You're going to realist?
I'm going to Williamson County Appraisal District, wcad.org. And I'm going to go over here to Property Search. And I'm going to pull the address, 912 Rusk Road. Okay, so the reason why, more importantly, we're going to use this information later, and we're going to talk about it on the checklist for the MLS. The reason why I want to go here first is because I may have already, and I should have already been in contact with this seller. I probably did a pre-listing lead sheet with them, meaning I've asked questions, so I have an idea of where their mindset is already at. I've asked questions such as, how much do you think you would want to price your home for? And how did you arrive at that number? How much square footage do you think you have in your home? Does anybody know why I'd asked that question even though the information is available to me? Correct. It's not always accurate on there, or also the seller is not always accurate, right? Because they were going off what the builder told them, or maybe they enclosed their garage, okay? So I always go to the CAD first. So I see what is their square footage based on the county appraisal, and what is the square footage as I'm looking through, so I can see if there's any discrepancies, because that may affect the price point of the property. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to scroll, and I'm going to look right here. Does everyone see this right here? Total main area. Okay, 2444. So 2,444 square feet. Okay, so that number I would typically jot down on a pad of paper, because I'm going to make sure that when I pull up data that it equals to whatever I'm seeing, also what I'm hearing from the seller. Does that make sense? Yes, Amy.
Something that I don't know if anybody else does this, and I'm a slow learner, and it just took me a little while today. Sometimes I'll print this off, but sometimes I'll just do print to PDF, and I'll keep it up on my computer so that I can have it there to refer to instead of having to go back and forth.
That's, yes.
And I also do it with the listing, like if there was a previous listing for that address, I go down and I pull up one previous and it opens a new tab, and I just leave that up to see if I'm
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that expert tip right there. And this is why y'all come to classes, because it's awesome to get those expert tips. Absolutely, Amy is 100% correct. And there's a couple reasons why. First and foremost, what she had said was she keeps the CAD open or prints to PDF and keeps it as an open tab, okay? The other thing that she might do is when she pulls up the MLS, she's going to pull up to see if there was an old MLS listing that she could also keep up to see what the differences might be, or to make sure that there's no discrepancies, okay? And so she tabs those. The other thing you're going to want to do, especially with the CAD, is you're going to want to print to PDF and keep it in a file. Everything that you pull, data for comps, you want to keep in a file on your computer or with command or however you choose to do it. You want to back up a file because this is your backup data. Later on, if you have to do a price adjustment, you want to make sure you remember what you were looking at back when you did these. There was a time when the market was months and months and months and months. And so you did a market analysis possibly 6 months ago, and it's going to be hard to remember what you looked at 6 months ago. Okay, so by keeping a file, this assures that one, you have the data, and two, you're able to look at it if it was requested from you in future. Does that make sense? Thank you, Amy. Okay, so now go ahead and keep that open if you have it open, because we may come back to that. Okay, so back to the MLS. We're going to go ahead and start our search. So the first thing that this market analysis step-by-step says is that you can save your client's data. Now, some MLSs allow you to do this. I think both Actress and CTX MLS will allow you to save your client's data. You can do that by going into My Matrix and going into Contacts, and you can save their data there. Does anyone have questions around that? Do I need to walk through this? I can? Okay, so if you go to Contacts and you go to, where's it at? Oh, right here, Add. It's been a while since I've done this, y'all. Okay, then you're going to add in their first name, their last name, and their email address. You will need to have their email address, obviously, to save the contact info. Now, there might be a chance, I don't know why this would be, however, there may be a chance you don't have an email address. I suggest in your pre-listing conversation you ask for all contact information for all parties involved. It may not be a married couple, it may be a roommate situation, it may be a familial situation, it may be an LLC situation. You want contact data for anybody who's going to be a part of the sale. Any question on that? And you can add multiple names and email addresses. You can actually add multiple email addresses separated by a comma, and then under the first name you could put whatever the LLC's name is, or you can put both or all the clients' names, however you want to fit it in. Any questions on that? Okay, so you don't have to have you don't have to have separate contacts for everyone, right? Okay. All right, so you'll first do this once you're starting this search, because you'll need that data to save your search. Okay, so you'll go up to search and you'll go to residential, and we're going to start with quick. Now, for those of you who have played around, you may or may not know this if you've kind of practiced in here. If you haven't done one of these before, you are also, especially if you're doing property that may be an oddball, right, that maybe it has some things that aren't in the quick or even the detailed search, you can add additional fields here. So for instance, I added occupant type, so I may be looking for things that have a tenant. If I have an investor and they're selling a property with tenants in it, I may want to do a search for other properties that have tenants in them that are being sold, because then I'm going to look and see how it compares price point to those that don't have tenants in it. Does that make sense? It's kind of muddy, but so you may want to put all your extra stuff, like if it has, maybe it has a golf course view. Maybe I'm looking to comp it to other properties that have a golf course view. So this, you'd go to add, remove, and then all these available fields are there. There's tons of them. You click on it, you click add, and you go back, and then before you know it, all these fields are going to be available to you down here. So that way you can do a specific search and add to it. Any questions on that before we move on? Don't be shy. Okay, awesome. Everyone understand why we would do this? Awesome. Okay.
Can you have too much in your specific search?
Wonderful question. Can you have too much in your specific search? You can, and the way you'll know is by how many properties are left in your results. And you'll see here that you're going to want a minimum of 3 properties sold, 3 sold properties, and a maximum of 6 sold properties, no more than that, in your search. Appraisers typically have to have 3 properties to review to determine whether or not it's going to appraise based on the numbers that they find. Another reason why you want to keep this really close to the number, to the market, to the very specific market, if you will, is because you're going to want to provide this or have this available should the appraiser have any questions on how you came up with a price point, which is another reason you don't want to say, okay, seller, sure, yeah, I'll take whatever price you want, because you still have to prove to the appraiser that you knew what you were talking about when you went to list the house. Okay, so great question. All right, so this says here we're going to search solds, pendings, and pending taking backups. So we're going to do that. If you click on pending taking backups, and sold. Now I also, to add to this, and you can make a note, this is where sometimes things differ. This is how I was coached to do a market analysis. I've added to this. So for me, I also add the actives and active contingents. Can anyone tell me possibly why I would do that?
Inventory in the area?
Exactly, inventory.
It's your competition.
And competition, right, because we know that supply and demand is one of the biggest factors, especially in our market here in the Central Texas area, that supply and demand is really going to tell us where our market is standing, right? So you can first do pending taking backups, and solds, and then do actives. I actually include them all to give a wider picture. Okay, any questions on that? There's no right or wrong way to do that. If you take the actives out, that's fine. You cannot use them in your backup to the appraiser. So you can't tell the appraiser, well, this one's listed. He or she does not really care. They just care about the solds. However, the reason why you would have actives, pendings, pending taking backups, why would those be important? Yes, how long they have been on the market and if they've had a price reduction, right? Because if you see there's been 3 pending taking backups and they've all sold in 2 days, what is that telling you about the market? It's hot. It's hot, right? So when you're giving them a range, and that's what I'm going to advise you to do, is when you're giving them a range to choose from, or that you're suggesting, then they're possibly going to be able to list at the higher part of the range rather than the lower part of the range. Does that make sense? Okay, wonderful. All right. So for purposes of this specific CMA, we're going to do the active and active contingent so I can show you what that larger picture looks like. Okay? So next, we're going to, any questions? Okay. So next, we're going to go ahead and look at the square footage. And that's over here on that right-hand side. So this one we said earlier was 2,444 square feet. So we want to go 10% above and.
Sorry, Kristen, can I interrupt?
Sure.
So I don't have active contingent on MLS.
Yes.
But I do have pending with options.
Pending with option is yes. Okay, let's talk about active contingent real quick. How many people put their properties in active contingent? Okay. How many agents take active contingent out of your searches when you're searching for a client? Okay. So those of you who said you put your listings in active contingent and you also don't show active contingent, how do you think that affects your sellers? So when you're in active contingency, I'm going to take this as a teaching moment. This is a sidetrack from CMA, but I want you to understand the difference and why CTX MLS does not have an active contingent. They have a pending option. Pending option lets people know that there's an opportunity to jump in. Why? In case it falls through. Active contingency makes you feel like what? It's a done deal. Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. So could that hurt your sellers? Okay. So.
Active contingent though, it's usually like really pretty solid, and that's typically I don't, think of an active contingent as being available. And that's why I don't send it or show it.
As long as you're advising your clients that as soon as you put it in active contingent, it tells other agents that they don't necessarily need to show the property and that it could hurt them, then yes. And why could it hurt them? What if your active contingent has a loan product? And what if the buyer changes their job or loses their job? What happens? So what we thought could be assured in a closing, was it truly? Is it really contingent on $1 million? I mean, even a pending deal isn't that pretty contingent?
Well, I mean, active contingent is usually when somebody has another house to sell before they can buy the house that they made an offer on.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually what it's
That's usually why, correct? And then what could happen? What could go wrong?
domino effect.
How many have had that happen? Okay, so I'm just telling you, I've had some questions lately on CTX MLS why there's not an active contingency. And in my practice of business, I feel like it's better not to have an active contingency because I know there's agents out there that will not show my client's property. And if I have an agent out there that has a cash buyer or a conventional buyer, I absolutely want them to show my property because I would absolutely advise my client to consider any offers if it were as good as or better than any contingency that they have if it's in their best interest. Right?
Would you keep it as active then instead of going active contingency even though you accepted an offer that is contingent? Is that really following MLS rules?
Yeah.
Read your MLS rules.
What do they say about that?
Read your MLS rules.
Where is that? Where is that say?
It would be under the help section under MLS. But just remember, due diligence purposes, make sure that because, especially if you're in 2 MLSs, I'm in 2 MLSs. I was in 3 as an agent. I was in 3 MLSs, right? And they all were different because in Highland Lakes, that's a whole different ball game. You know what I'm saying? So just make sure that it's as consistent as possible and that you understand when you're going into these situations and you're changing statuses on the MLS, what that can do. Because for instance, your CMA on a CTX MLS is going to look different than one on an Actress because Actress has an active contingent and CTX has a pending option, you know, so it's going to be different. It's going to differ a little bit. And if you're doing both MLSs, you probably want to do a market analysis from both MLSs. How many are part of 2 MLSs? Okay. So those of you who are part of 2 MLSs, you're probably going to want to do this process on both so you can see what the difference might be. But I just wanted to drop that little bug in your ear when you're thinking about active contingency because that had never been posed to me before. And I was like, wait a second, you're right. Anyways, okay, check your MLS rules. Okay, so we're going to go over here to total square footage, and we're going to do 10%. I got to do the math on that because I didn't do it beforehand. Say it again.
2,200 to 2,689.
Now, I happen to know the Sonoma area because this is a market that I lived in for 7 years. So I know that on average, most homes are really going to be in that square footage. Yet, if you know that this property is one of the largest in the neighborhood, you may already know that if you sell in this neighborhood often, or the smallest, then you may want to widen or broaden your search if you're going to have trouble getting those 3 sold. Does that make sense? Okay.
You start in the neighborhood, but if you need more, you move the neighborhood to the area.
Correct.
Or map the area.
Yes. So the next thing you're going to do is come over here to subdivision because we're looking specifically in that market. And we're going to put the subdivision in, and this subdivision is Sonoma. Okay. So if everyone, can everyone see this right here? It says 4 matches. So right now I'm at 4 matches just with the details I've already put in. And that's active contingent, pending taking backups, and sold for 90 days. Okay. So we're right about where we need to be.
You're on the Austin MLS right now?
We're in Austin MLS. Yes.
Mine says 5,000.
So does mine.
I have 0.
Okay, wait. Let's go back. So you guys all have active contingent, pending taking backups and sold only to 90 days, right? You all have Sonoma in the subdivision. Make sure Sonoma's in the subdivision. And then total square foot, 2,200 to the little dash, right? Or the hyphen, 2,689.
Do we get results?
No, it'll give you that number.
So does everyone have 4? Who has more? 4?
I have 5,000.
You have 5,000?
Me and her both do.
You gotta put neighborhood. Sonoma?
Yeah. But it lists, brought up 4.
Click tab.
I hit the results and it
It-
did it.
Okay, click results and see. Maybe it's just not updating.
Glitching on me.
See, but then even I go back, it still is that.
Oh, don't go back because it clears your search.
There it is. 4.
If you go back, you have to redo your search. Yes.
The square feet.
Click on
Sure.
the pattern
So the
criteria.
square feet we know is 22 or 2444, And so we're doing 10% above and 10% below. Now, why would you change that, the 10% above or below?
Because you're not gonna find anything probably the exact number of square feet, so you want a range that's close.
Right, and why would you want to broaden the range? What situations would you broaden the range for? If you're the smallest, if you're the largest, or if you have like an oddball property. There are some areas in Georgetown specifically in the older, in the historic neighborhoods that people like, tear down and rebuild, and there might be this oddball property that's like 4,000 square feet and everything else around it's like 1,500. Those are times when you'd want to expand your search and kind of see what things are selling for. Any questions on this so far? Okay, so the next step it's talking about here is to go in and put age. Why would you want to search for age? Give me some examples.
Just like you mentioned, if it's constructed new in an old neighborhood.
Perfect, correct. If you're doing like in a historical neighborhood, if you do a new build and you're pricing, let's say the next door neighbor is a new build and you're pricing yours, you're going to want to know what they're selling the new build for, right? Why else? Yes, lead-based paint is one, especially now anything like 1990-ish. It says you can do 10 years prior. You can do a range. So anything like if you're really in the historical area, like 1950s to 1980s, there's going to be a different in the types of construction you see. However, in a buyer's mindset, what do they think? It's all the same. Right? Even though we know it's not, and there's architectural differences and character differences and possibly lead-based paint differences, right? So, but when you're doing a search for a seller in a kind of an age range that's older than 2000s or earlier than the 2000s, then you're going to want to just run a large range, okay? Okay, so for this specific one, we're not going to put in age because this area has a very particular date range in which things were built. There are some newer, and we'll see that when we pull them up. But right now, because we only have 4, we're not going to dig into age. The next one is area. It says your best results will come from homes that are listed in the same subdivision, which is why we put Sonoma, right? Now, there have been times when I have listed properties that were in, say, Forest Creek. Does anyone know where the in-town homes were built in Forest Creek? Those are right off of Redbud. They're the ones that are literally on the street. So there's a home that's being listed there, and it's been listed there for a while. I could probably pull it up and show you. It's been there for a while. And they're priced, they really love their home. It's priced very high, So a lot of times what has happened, especially for those folks that have built or purchased over there, is those are oddball properties, if you will. They're not the norm for Forest Creek. I mean, when I say Forest Creek, those of you who know it, what do you think? Country Club, right? Built in the 90s, 2000s, established, right? If you really have shown those properties, there's quite a few that need to be updated. They're great. They're huge homes, huge. I mean, the masters are like 4,000 and 5,000 square feet, right? There's some big homes over there. The price point is pretty high in some of those. But then I live in the newer section of Forest Creek, and they're D.R. Horton builds. They don't look like D.R. Hortons. They're just, again, oddballs, right? But the price points are in the 2s to 3s to 4s, depending on where your house is parked at, if you will, right? So it's congruent, though, as you look through the neighborhood, and then all of a sudden you have these condo-looking houses, and they're not. They're standalone homes, but they look like condos because they're this close to one another, and they're new builds. And these specific in-town homes that I was selling are built by a Houston builder, and so all of their upgrades were upgrades, right? They had really large trim and gorgeous molding and bathrooms fit for a king. I mean, just not the norm that you see in Forest Creek, even with the homes and the masters, just really high-end finishes. So what do you think my challenge was when I went to sell one of those homes? Comps. How in the heck am I going to sell this thing? There's nothing in the area that's new. KB Homes was building over in Forest, Yeah, somewhere around there, like right in for Village, something Forest over there.
Forest Village.
Yeah, Forest Village. We'll say that. We'll just say that. But it's across the street, and they were building homes that started in the 350s KB, and they were huge, huge homes. So those were the only new builds in the area. So I had to start going outside of the neighborhood, and so that's what this is talking about. Is area, when you are in an area where you might have properties that don't fit or anything within the last 90 days or even 180 days that fits the property that you're going to sell, then you're going to pull your area out a little bit. You're going to look on the outskirts for areas that are similar in traffic, meaning is it just as accessible to the highways? Is it close to the schools? Is it something that's driving people to it as much as or as little as the specific property is? Yes.
So, what happens when you start to put in data and it erases all your results?
Then take out the data that you just put in, and then we've got to work the search a different way. Now, it could be that there's nothing for sale in that area. And so that's when you really have to look and start to expand what your area kind of encompasses. So for instance, on this specific property, it was in Round Rock. Pflugerville was here. Hutto is here. Literally, you can throw a stone either way and you hit them. And so I went out to different areas that had the same acreage, that had similar build, that had possible view. This one had a golf course view, is literally on the golf course. So things that could mimic that, and I was able to pull comps. And we still sold with a profit in 2 days. And when the appraiser came about, we appraised. So you really have to be very detailed when it comes into pulling outside of the area. Cesar.
Did you go and start comparing with some of the condos because of the uniqueness of the product, since there are some, you see what I mean, that product, that in-town home product, like you said, they're close by, is it
Sure. Sure. So
do you compare with standalone condos pretty much?
Well, it's going to depend. Some condos have association rules that are strict. This one specifically had homeowners association rules that were strict, much like a condo association. The difference is in some condos, they do what? They cover the outside of the house, roof, outside maintenance, and then front. Yeah. This property did not. And so that could be a big value to somebody who is buying a condo, is that you have less maintenance, right? And so the price point might reflect what a buyer feels, so you just have to judge that based on your product.
Yeah. So I'm thinking more of the type of buyer for that product, whether it's a condo or standalone condo style, single family, small yard.
Sure. So what you're going to come down to, I think, for the buyer, if you're thinking about a buyer that would fit, is they are going to want a lock and leave lifestyle, because this still had small front and backyard. They just would have to be comfortable with having some kind of maintenance. And so what I knew about this property was the neighbors got together and hired the same landscaper. And so the landscaper did everyone's front yard, and everyone paid their portion. So when you know that about a property, then you can comp it based on how it, kind of fits or doesn't fit with the surroundings. So for instance, like in Turtle Creek in Round Rock, and I think there's also, what are they called here? There's condos here called River something. Is it River's Edge? Somewhere. River's Edge. Okay, and so there's condos there, yet you'd have to find other condos in Georgetown that fit with the similar amenities, the similar lifestyle in terms of what they offer. Like if they have a lot of amenities, workout centers, concierge, then you're going to want to find things that are similar.
See, I run into this same example you're talking about with a brownstone next to the Sheraton.
Brownstones, yeah, exactly.
Same thing.
Well, they would typically comp to something that's similar to a townhouse or standalone condo style like Terra Vista. So you'd really have to go, and you have to figure out what the exact comparison is, so when you're showing that to an appraiser, you can help them to understand what you were seeing when you priced it.
And that's where adjustments come in for me, those having elevator, where do you find comps with elevator?
Sure.
That kind of stuff, so.
Sure, okay.
Kristen, sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
On the sold, you have 0 to 90. When would you decide to go more?
Expand. Okay, so we know that appraisers don't want to look much past 90 days. If we look at right now, for example, 90 days ago, was this market hot?
No.
Right. So when you're looking at the comps, and they may be way low, right, 90 days ago because the market was, not very quick, it was a little slow or whatever, then you may want to go ahead and expand. However, you have to also understand that 180 days ago, the market was not only different, but the circumstances were different. It may be a difference in interest rates. So just understand what you're doing and be able to explain to an appraiser why you went that far back, because they may have to go that far back too. But they might more likely expand their area before they go back. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes.
So this might be a totally wacky question.
Ask it.
But if you're having just a really hard time on a comp or finding comps that are meaningful, is it ever acceptable to get an appraisal ahead of?
You absolutely can get an appraisal ahead of time. Yes,
Okay.
you can. No, you just explain the risks to your seller that if the appraisal comes back shorter than what you had hoped it would have, you're still having to provide that. And then, if you choose to provide that, and then possibly someone who was willing to pay over may not. So here's the thing, and this is what I'm hoping that you're going to get from this class, is that if you price it right, your seller, it should affect their bottom line in the positive. It should be good, because if it's priced competitively in this market right now, chances are it will sell, possibly sell quickly, and possibly sell for over what you're asking if it's competitive. And the first thing a seller hears is, well, if it's sold fast and there's multiple offers, then what happened? Underpriced. I hear that all the time. Well, is it truly, right? Because sometimes you get multiple offers and they're all at the same price, or they're maybe a couple thousand over, a couple thousand under, right? The bottom line, and this is a script that I use with my sellers all the time, a house is not worth what you paid for it, what your neighbor says it's worth, what you could rebuild it for. A house is worth what you're willing to sell it for and what a buyer is willing to buy it for. The second aspect to that is it has to appraise, especially if there's a financing contingency on it, right? And sometimes even with cash sales, they're going to want an appraisal. So you could list it for $1 million today, and it could possibly sell for $1 million today. However, those people would have to have the cash to come up with to make that doable. And, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is that something you really want to risk? I mean, wouldn't you rather price your house right and get it sold today and make the most money possible? Wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So the next thing, it talks about similarities. So you will want to find as many comparable homes as possible. Even though I say you want a maximum of 6 homes, really, if you had 16 on there, that's fine, because then you get to really get a big picture of what that market looks like, okay? So making sure that you're getting as most homes possible so you can see the biggest picture. And then you start to narrow from there. Notice that we don't have beds and baths or whatnot included in this, because the reality is that you could have a 2-bedroom house sell for more than a 4-bedroom house, and you're going to want to know why. What were the factors that helped that home sell? Maybe it was on a golf course, and you are in the same subdivision, but you're 3 roads away from the golf course, or maybe it had just a phenomenal finish out, right? So these are the things you're looking for. On the back page, it's going to go into talking about a converted garage. So a converted garage, no matter what, is going to affect the sales price in some way, no matter how well it's done. Okay, there's always someone who's like, well, I want a garage and it has a carport, or the garage finish out wasn't maybe that great, or oh, it has AC, so I'm adding the square footage in. We don't know how the appraiser is going to look at that. I can assure you, though, most of them do a discount for a converted garage, or they don't include the square footage, which is still, considered a discount on the price, right? Bless you. Bless you. And I'm not talking about like a discount in sale, right? I'm talking about just a discount price. They take it, it's against the positives of that property, okay? If it's a pool, some appraisers will give you $10,000, $15,000 for a pool. Some will consider it a negative. A pool's really a 50-50, you know? I've known people to put $90,000 pools in. You ain't getting that money back. I mean, unless you're selling a heck of a property, it's going to be tough, and even then, it's going to be tough to pull that money back, okay? Because people who've not had a pool and want a pool may be willing to pay. Those who have had a pool don't want a pool, or if they do, they're going to be very picky. They're going to want to make sure it's in great shape because they know what it means to take care of one. You had a question.
So if you had a house with a pool and you can't find other comps and you're stuck trying to take a comp without a pool, what do you have? I mean, do you have any kind of value that you would?
So.
Like half of what the pool is, maybe.
I don't even look at what they paid for the pool. I don't even bring that into factor because that's just going to hurt their feelings. Sure. If they put a new pool in on a new construction home and they're selling in a very quick period of time, they're going to lose the money no matter what. Because most of the time, they've either overpaid and they haven't been in the house long enough to rebuild their equity, or maybe they got a deal but they spent it on the pool. So if you bring up what they paid for the pool, you're going to hurt their feelings. So what I say is, I love a pool. Like I don't have a pool. I'd love to put one in. We're not putting one in because I know better. Yet I love a pool. That doesn't mean everybody does, and it cuts our buyer pool down. It minimizes the amount of people who are actually willing to look at this property. Now, and it doesn't make up for the fact that some people just want a pool and are only looking for a pool. That's a very small amount of people, and those agents say you can always put a pool in, right? So our pool, though, for people who don't want a pool is much bigger. And so it reduces the amount of buyers who are actually looking at the property. So I'd consider the price as if the pool weren't there, and I look around for other properties that are in similar neighborhoods that have a pool to see if they're priced above or below and how they sell. Did they sell above or below the average sales price in the neighborhood for a home that's similar? And I'd price it accordingly. I can guarantee you it's not going to add more than maybe $10,000 to the price point. Unless it's in a neighborhood. Now, if every single house in the neighborhood has a pool, then the pool might be a little bit more promising for the price point, because then everybody wants a pool because everyone else has a pool. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've seen an adjustment on an appraisal for a pool.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is tough. And I mean, if the pool, like, you know, there was a home in Sonoma that sold. It was a 2-story. It sold. It really set the standard for the next 3 years. It had a gorgeous pool, except the whole space was how do I put it? It just had a lifestyle feel to it that made it different. So it had a phenomenal pool. They weren't getting that money back yet. The other things, they zero-scaped, and they had a nice living area outside, and they had built-in, you know, cooking area, you know, like a built-in grill and a fridge. And so the whole living style of it made the price point come up. It still reduced the amount of buyers because some people just don't want a pool, yet because of the way that it presented itself, lended itself to sell quickly. And it was still priced well for the neighborhood, if that makes sense, even though it set a price precedent. Okay? So it just, you're going to have to really read the house. But if it just has like a basic pool that hasn't been refinished in a while, the pool equipment's like, not really sure, then unfortunately that could actually hurt them more than help them. Even if they put it in 10 years ago and they paid $50,000 for it. Well, I'm so glad that you got your use out of it. That's awesome. You know, I tell people, if you're going to do it, put it in right away and use it for 5 years, and then, you know, you're not going to feel so bad when I tell you you're not going to get that money back. So, all right. So the next thing it talks about is going outside of your search criteria. We've talked about that. Basements, there's not many out there. If you find one, that's going to be an oddball, and it may be good for a small number of people. It's very rare in this area to find a basement. Anybody sold anything with a basement before? Okay.
Seen one.
You've seen one?
Seen
So,
one on TV.
right. So it's really hard with the limestone. You may have some like, let's say you're selling land, and of course I'm just doing a market analysis today because of our time frame. on regular residential. When you start getting into land, that's a whole different ballgame, y'all. We'll do some stuff on that. But you have storm shelters, and you have warehouses, and horse stalls. I mean, you name it. There's all kinds of stuff out there, and all of those things factor into the sales price, okay? And notice I'm saying sales price. We don't say value or worth. Trex says that we're not allowed to use those words anymore. So be very careful when you're doing your listing presentations on value and worth. Those are appraiser terms. Unless we're appraisers, we cannot use them. So it's price point, okay? Okay. So let's go ahead and finish out this search. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at this because 4 is pretty small. And I have a feeling that some of those are active, so I'm going to actually have to expand my search. So I'm going to pull the results. Oh, this neighborhood sells so quick. Okay, so let me make this a little smaller for just a second so you can see the full. Well, I say it sells quick, but actually it doesn't. Look at those numbers. Okay, so we've only gone 3 months back. The last one sold in January. I'm going to pull all of these up and do a single page, or the agent page. Look, so it kind of looks like this. Okay, so one thing that you're going to do is anything that you keep, and this is why I gave you this as an example, anything that you keep as a comp that you're going to put in your listing presentation to show to your sellers needs to be either printed or in a PDF format where you have done notes, taken notes on it, and they can see the pictures, right? Because you're going to be flipping through these, and you're going to want to, make notes on some of the things you're looking at because they have no idea. They look at this and go, do y'all remember the first time you looked at one of these MLSs and go, what is all that information? How do I find things? Or the first time you're showing a house and they're like, so what's the square footage? And you're like, hold on just 1 second. Wait. It's 2444. Or is this real wood? And you're looking for flooring. And you're like, well, I mean, it feels like it's real wood. Where's that again? Right? So this is how your sellers are feeling, and probably even more so because they haven't even talked about this or even seen an MLS sheet possibly. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at this and you're going to scroll on down because this is sold, right? And I'm looking to see what the original listing price was. So this was $307,900. It was on the market for 142 days, and it sold for $288,151. Y'all think that was priced right when they listed it? No. Okay. Okay. This one is 3548 Shiraz Loop. Okay. So, so we know that it was on the market for 142 days. They priced it over the 3s. It sold for $288,151. Okay. Other things I'm looking at is all agents fluff this, which you shouldn't really do any fluff at all, by the way, because, I mean, it's great and all, but these are agent remarks. I just want to know the details. But when you're looking at it, it says, okay, incredible floor plan, okay. Beautiful wood look tile, so that I would highlight. If I'm using this as a comp, I would highlight wood look tile. Master bath. Upstairs, so the master bedroom's up. I would highlight that because that's a factor. Do you guys think buyers prefer currently in this market masters up or down? Down. Have you ever heard about people liking masters up?
No. Yes.
People
when
from
all the other bedrooms are up and they have small children.
Yes, that one. And northerners really like bedrooms up too. A lot of people that are from the north are used to having their master bedrooms up. Yeah. So be aware of that. Be aware of that. Now, I can tell you a lot of the homes in this neighborhood that are the 2-story homes have master bedrooms up. So I know that that's not necessarily going to hurt this tremendously, especially if it's only 1 or 2 that are going to be on the market because this is a hot neighborhood. Except, obviously, it's got to be priced appropriately, even if, right? Because price can overcome anything, right? Okay. The other thing is huge garden tub. Okay, they all have those. Fresh painted throughout. Well, that's not an update. That's an upkeep. Awesome view from backyard. No neighbors behind. That's a highlight. Private backyard. And then it talks about the actual neighborhood. So I would highlight anything that is not an upkeep or an update, but an upgrade. Upgrade, like other homes may not have this. Okay, because that's what we're looking for. Other things that I'd highlight is the tax rate. I would highlight, make sure you're highlighting the days on market, the original list price, the sold price, the dates that went pending and sold. And I would also highlight any of this area. I don't know if you could see me over here where it says flooring, rooms, kitchen, appliances, equipment, interior. I would highlight anything that might be out of the norm, like granite and marble counters. I would highlight that because in this area they don't often have the granite. This one's going to allow you to keep the refrigerator. Well, at least the MLS says it will. Okay, so you'll highlight that. Security system owned, I would highlight that. The flooring is carpet and hard tile. I don't know if I'd highlight that because most of those in that area, I mean, you've already highlighted that they did do an upgrade of wood look tile. That's an upgrade, so I'd highlight that. Any questions on how you'd highlight it, much like you'd highlight this? Okay. And everything that I said or everything that you're thinking when you're going through and marking this up, you're going to want to add to your form, right? Because we're printing this out to show them what a buyer is going to be thinking, right? So right here I put, okay, 2444, good size for the neighborhood, right? So it's not too big and it's not too small. It's right in the middle. And I know that this neighborhood specifically is more like a transitioning neighborhood. People move in because they're either, you know, they work for Dell and they're on a contract, they're renting. They're kind of in transition periods, except there are some homes that are smaller. So if people are right sizing, they may be moving in. There's all kinds of reasons, but this market, this specific neighborhood moves quite a bit. There's a lot of sales. Age range matches the comps as we start looking at it. So this one's built in 2004. There's not a lot of variation in the age range. This one's 2007, so you're going to see that age range. Can you hear me out there?
Yeah, you're great.
Okay. And then, principal's office. Detention. Okay, so the next thing you're going to look for, like this one here, this comp, you'll see I circled, and you guys all have this in front of you. I circled the active days on market and conditional days on market. I circled and said sold fast because that was 7 days. That's a quick sale. And you can see this is how you're drawing the correlation, right? It's sold quickly, and you can also see they listed at $299,900 smart agent under the 300 search threshold, and it sold for $310, right? So I don't know, maybe there's a correlation between pricing it right and selling it fast. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying that that's what it shows, right? And then I highlighted everything that was like an update or I'm sorry, an upgrade. It said renovated. That's a good word to use if it's been completely remodeled. I highlighted the water. It says city. The only thing is I think I have to go look at the CAD. It may be in a water district. And then, of course, I went through here. The acreage is smaller than average. I know the lot that we had was like 0.28, so 0.19 is going to feel like a small lot when you're out there looking at it. I highlighted that the master was not on the main floor. And then I highlighted also that the agent didn't put a lot of information, not a lot of info on the interior, right? So I don't know what the interior looks like, but if there's not a lot of info, it makes me go, The only thing that makes up for it is that they put a lot in the remarks. Any questions on how to do this part of it? And when you're looking at this, what you're looking for? Yes, ma'am.
When you put lower tax rate, it's because the CAD said it was literally a lower tax rate than this.
No, so the low tax rate I like to highlight on the comps. For the most part, the neighborhood should have a similar tax rate. Now, if they are zoned in different school districts throughout the neighborhood, you're going to want to note the tax rate might be different between theirs and maybe the one across the street.
Got it.
Okay.
The CAD on this one literally says 2.308.
And this says 2.32. Yeah. So that's fine too. That's good to make. Yes. You can do that. I did this one, not even looking at the CAD, just to point out that this is a particularly, 2.3 is a great tax rate in some of these areas, because I'm seeing 3s and 3.5 in other areas. So that's a plus to a buyer, yet I also want to make sure that as I'm looking through the comps, if there's different tax rates, to make note of that. Because if ours is the highest one, we need to show that in the price point. Any questions on that? Great question, thank
What do
you.
mean shorten the price point? Price a little lower?
Yeah,
because the tax
exactly,
rate is
because,
higher.
correct, because chances are if you're in a higher tax rate, you might be in the newer portion of the neighborhood, which might show, so you may still have a higher price point anyways, yet if you're the only one that has that high tax rate, and then there's a bunch of others that have the lower, they're better competition, if you will, because in the end, that tax rate's going to hurt what that buyer can afford. So make sure that your price is priced accordingly, if you will. Great question. Thank you, Brenda. Any other questions on doing something like this? Can anyone see, as if you were the seller, the value of looking at something like this and understanding why your agent priced it the way, or why you're advising the way you are? Could you see why this would be important? Okay, great.
Something you would show them, but you're not gonna leave this in your packet with all this agent information and stuff. You just take this to your appointment to have on
You
hand.
can, yeah. I mean, it's up to you. I typically, if you have a listing presentation and they're interviewing other people, I would not leave anything, because you can.
Can't you print
Well,
it
also
out
you
that-
can print customer.
Well, the customer will not give any of the sold data.
No.
And you're doing a listing presentation, you're allowed to show the sold data. So yes, it's totally appropriate.
Retype it into your own listing.
I would not. I mean, you can, but if you make a mistake, just print this out. If you're worried about it, black it out. It's fine. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so let's look at the next comp. So we're not going to really have to refine anything yet. Let me go to the next comp here. So this was listed at $318,900 at least at this time frame. 2488 square feet. It has 0.15 acres, built in 2006. Very similar to this one, right? I'm looking back over here, master on main. This is a yes. This is a 2-story, but still the master is on main. So what do you think that means? That's a plus. Yeah, that's a good thing. Carpet, tile hard. That's similar to the last one. Kitchen, it has the silestone counters. It has an own security system, very similar. The other one still has more of a plus because it has the granite and marble, right, rather than the original silestone. Still same tax rate. I'm looking at the remarks. 4th bed is a flex. Okay, only game room upstairs, so that's nice, right? So it's a 2-story, but a lot of people consider this a 1.5, which is not a real term, but a lot of realtors use it. It's a 1.5. It doesn't really have anything upstairs except the game room, you know. It's a 2-story. Large island, okay, they all have that. 2,500 buyer allowance.
Carpet's in terrible.
Oof, right off the bat, I'm like, oh, geez, just price it right from the get-go and don't worry about the allowance. Okay. So the other thing I'm looking at was their original listing price was $318,900. The sold price is $309,000. So another thing that I do when I see when I'm looking at the original price versus the sold price, I like to go and see what the history was. So they actually didn't reduce the price. Did they reduce the price? No, I guess not. $318,900. So they never really reduced it. It was temporarily off the market for a little while for whatever reason. Came back on the market about a month later. Maybe they just were ready and then the market slowed down. That September time is a tough time to sell. And then they came back on pending literally, oh gosh, it was what? 42, so quite a few days, like 2 months, yeah, about 2 months after it came back on, and ultimately it sold for $309,000. Okay, so we're taking that into consideration. Let's look at the next one. So this one was 309. The last one was what? What did it sell for again? 288, 151. Okay. Next. So this third one is pending taking backup, so it hasn't closed yet. Listed at $319,900, which was its original, and so it went under contract in 7 days. This is a single story. How is that good or bad compared to a two-story? This is going to be a little, it's giving this one kind of a plus, right? It has a 3-car garage. Does this one have a 3-car garage? 2-car garage. Updated, crown molding, remodeled kitchen, Corian counters, stainless steel appliances. Those are really updates, okay, not necessarily upgrades. The oversized master and double vanity is very normal for this neighborhood, so that's not a huge woo, you know.
Next to the green belt on a corner cul-de-sac.
Boom, that's a good one. Yeah, where did I miss that?
Lot description.
Oh, under lot description. Perfect. That's a great one to look at. What else do y'all see on here? Window treatments. Carpet tile is very, office study, that's nice because they're not calling a bedroom an office, right? So it actually looks like it has a dedicated office space.
Solar could be up to $10,000 toward closing costs.
Where are you seeing that?
The aging remarks last
Are you on the right, same one as I am?
Blackstone Cove.
No, I'm on Buena Vista.
Holy moly. It
That's
looks
okay.
like I'm on the right one.
That's okay.
Where did we get, what number is that?
This is 6118, 6180420 for MLS number. It's the pending taking backups. Did you click pending taking backups when you did your search? That could be too. They might just be in a different order. So in looking at this one is under contract. We don't know what the list price is, but what could you say about this property when you're looking at it and doing all your comps?
Probably sold somewhere close to that list price since it's already under contract.
It's already under contract potential in 7 days, right? And it was priced at $319,900 for a single story is where I want you guys to go with this. $319,900 for a single story.
That'll probably be a comp by the time you go on the market. It might be sold and something the appraiser would look at.
Yeah, it might be. However, if you're considering a price for a 2-story, right?
Price is a little more than what you should price the two-story.
Right, so might this be a cap? Right? I mean, would you even go up to $319,900?
No.
Getting warmer. Right, because here, and this is why I want you to look at some of the stuff that's pending taking backup or even active, is because if you see long days on market for an active that's very similar to yours and that's your competition, then you may want to say, hey, look, I know you want 309. This one's 310. It's exactly the same layout. Maybe you have better countertops and maybe you have a better outdoor living space. Yet, if it's been on the market for 140 days and it's listed at 310, do we really want to risk your house at that same price when this is our
Another
competition?
days.
That's right.
For yourselves.
Correct. Right? Do you see where I'm going with this conversation? Are you guys grasping? Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So you're saying this one's overpriced?
No. I mean, what does the market say this one, how well this one's priced?
Very well.
Good, 7 days.
It was on the market for 7 days before it went under contract. Okay. All right. So the next one is a sold. When it gets there, it's thinking maybe I didn't click it right. All right. So this is Blackstone, listed at $325,000. Was on the market 52 days. It's sold at $318,000. It's 2,600 square feet, 0.2 on the acreage, which is similar to the one that we have. Tax rate is the same. Has some solar panels, which is nice. Those are kind of like a pool, though, in Texas, right?
Really?
Yeah. solar panels, because so the thing with solar panels are it's a personal opinion thing, right? I've seen bills for solar panels where your electric bill is $8 a month. It could be a huge saving for anybody that's living in a home of this size, especially 2 stories with a master up, where you're really using the air conditioning, the heater during those summer and winter months, right? So especially at the age of these homes, where maybe their windows aren't as efficient or the insulation isn't as efficient, right? So solar panels could be a big bonus. However, people don't know what the heck they are. They don't know what they do. They don't know how to maintain them. It's kind of like a pool where some people are going to love them, they want them, they understand them, and other people are like, I don't want nothing to do with them because I have no idea, and they screwed holes into my roof, and you know. And the other thing to know about solar panels when you're selling homes with solar panels is sometimes they're leased, and you're going to want to ask the question, are these solar panels owned or leased? Because if they're leased, you still have to continue making the payments as the new buyer, new owner, okay?
To the property versus to a person?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, that doesn't mean you can't negotiate that the seller pays them off at closing. I mean, you could negotiate all kinds of things, okay? Loaded with upgrades, backing to neighborhood green space, open plan. How many times have we heard that? Rich hardwood and tile floors. So if you see if they're carpet, tile, hardwood, I would circle that wood. That's been a bonus out of everything we've seen. It's the only one that had some wood, wood flooring, as opposed to just the carpet and hard tile. High ceilings, they all have that. Oversized masters, they all have that. Granite kitchen, stainless steel appliances. With assumption of remaining solar contract balance and acceptable offer, seller is willing to pay $10,000 towards buyer's closing costs. Okay, so it was on the market 52 days. Let's see, did they do any kind of price adjustment? No, yes. So they started $329,900. You'll want to look at the history often on this. So they started at $329,900, and they did a price decrease. No, they didn't. It says price decrease. Oh, it looks like an error or a last-minute mind change because they went on the same day they moved it. So $329,900 was the actual starting price, even though they originally entered in $335,000. I think that was, they had a change of heart. And then 18 days later, they did a price adjustment to $328,900, so they dropped it $2,000, and then they dropped it another $39,000, almost $4,000, and then they got their offer another 25 days later. Would just work just to price it right from the get-go instead of having to do multiple price adjustments. Anybody else agree with that?
I agree.
Okay. Yeah. It's a lot of work for you, the agent, to have to call them every time and be like, let's reduce it, right? Okay, so they also gave $9,500 actually back in closing costs and another $300. So basically $9,600, give or take, that they gave back in closing costs. So when I take that off the top, really the buyers got the house for around $309,000, $308,000. So now, considering everything that you've seen, let's just do a market analysis based off of what we've seen. We saw $288,000, $308,000. This one's $308,000. The other one was $320,000, and it's not sold yet, and it was a single story. So if I were the seller, y'all give me some feedback. What should I list my house at? This one right here at 912 Rusk.
I didn't write all that down, so I don't remember.
That's okay. Based on what we've heard, so the first one was $288,000.
What's the address?
The address was, let me go back. So $288,000, $151,000. Rusk sold for $309,000. And Blackstone, even though it sold for $318,000, really sold for somewhere around $308,000, $309,000. And then we know that Buena Vista is a single story, and it's sold in 7 days for $319,900. So as a seller, knowing these numbers, what would you tell me? Because I mean, I want to list like at 330. So who's going to take my listing?
How many months do you want it to be on the market?
How long do you want it to be on the market?
Just give me a number. Price range. I wanted to sell tomorrow.
$1.
Huh? 305. So give me a range. I never want you to give a flat number. I want you to give a range. 3 to 310.
Yeah.
Okay, why? Come on, Nikki. Why? You do know. Tell me why. What you think? There's no right or wrong. Just your opinion. Okay. Splitting the difference. Now, you've just told me, we talked about everything. What are you going to reiterate to me? So let's look at this again real quick. I do have some upgrades on my home. Remember, I have stainless steel appliances. What else are you going to tell me? So do they. Great. That's a great script. So do they. Seriously, y'all, did you hear that? That's a great... What else? I have full exterior and interior paint.
So do they.
Okay. I have new countertops. You don't know what kind because I didn't tell you. Okay. I have new carpet and tile.
They're allergic.
Okay. And I have all new plumbing and light fixtures. That's why I want to sell for $330.
But those add to livability, not necessarily to value.
Okay.
Regular maintenance and upkeep.
Okay. So why should I sell from 3 to 310? Or does anyone have another number? Mary Lynn.
Well, your master's up.
Okay.
And master down is more popular and sells faster in
Okay.
this market.
Okay.
Would you tell me?
Okay. So where would you say that I price?
Like 305, between 295 and 305.
Okay, that's a different range. 295. Ooh, that hurts. Why 295? I'm not sure. Why would you want me to go 295?
Because you'll catch all the people who are only searching up to 300.
Okay.
And in this neighborhood, I don't know.
Okay. Keep going. You're doing great. I'm so I'm getting chills. You're doing right. You're doing great.
Those tend to be the kinds of buyers who would search in this neighborhood.
Okay. Okay.
That's a good point because people put their search parameters in the computer based on certain dollar amounts.
Yes. Okay. You guys are exactly on the right path.
$1,000 dollar amounts.
Yes. And don't forget to take me back. Look at the numbers. Amy, tell me what you're going to say before I go here.
Well, the one that, and it's not sold yet, but just saying it was, the highest price was $319,900. It's one story and has 3-car garage. It's
Yeah, but don't people want a 2-story house?
Not necessarily.
No.
Not people that are aging or have mobility issues. They don't want to be walking up and down stairs.
Okay.
Or perhaps people with
Kinda like with the
disability
pool,
or
it
children
cuts
with
out your-
disability.
your
It cuts
Okay.
out- It cuts out a whole population.
Okay. So Amy, what would you recommend I list at?
I'm $299.
299.
Yeah, to
Okay.
get under the 300 and
Okay.
you'll probably get higher than that. Obviously they did.
Well, why in the 2s though? I don't understand.
Because you're going to appeal to a broader audience.
Take me back to the numbers. You guys can convince me with scripts all along, but if I'm the kind of person that needs to see numbers, this one right here, which was larger than my home, newer than my home, sold for $288,151. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I could absolutely price you at $330,000. If I look at the market, and I don't make the market, I just interpret it. If I look at the market, I see all these wonderful sellers who, just like you, wanted around $320,000, $330,000 for their properties, and the market told them ultimately where their property probably should have been listed. In fact, had it been priced appropriately ahead of time, maybe they would have made more money, right? Maybe they would have made more money. And I can't show you that because they were all priced, obviously, over what the market was telling them, except for this one here, Buena Vista. And of course, we're not sure what that one is under contract for, right? But it's a single story at $319. And I've just told you all the wonderful things that someone might want a single story for. So knowing some of the barriers that a two-story holds, especially with the master bedroom up, could you see why listing for $299,000 or $285,000 or $295,000, whatever you said, to $299,000 might be beneficial? And if I went with that, if you actually look at this, they sold for $310,000 for listing at $299,000, right? And this just sold, well, this was last year, but still. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Because why? Priced right. Perfect. Does everyone understand that? Do you understand why I'm asking you to look at the numbers? Know these numbers. Don't go in and just throw spaghetti at that wall to see if it sticks. Okay? Make sure you understand, like, that 288 is harmful to your price point. And there's nothing any of us can do about it. And none of us can do anything about that. That's just what the market stated, because that's what it's sold for. And that's going to possibly be, and if the appraiser pulls these same comps, it's going to be in his comps or her comps. And there's a chance that that could hurt our ability to be priced appropriately, so that way you appraise. And if that $319,900 closes at $319,900, let's assume, or even a little bit less, and you try to go for $330,000, do you really think, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that the appraiser is going to appraise you for $330,000? I mean, have any of them sold for even near that? Right. Because that $318,000, and I would, if this were me, I would cross out that $318,000 and put $308,000 or $309,000 on it, and so they're seeing a real valid picture of what these things actually sold for. And I mean, don't you guys want to be the agents that get their client $310,000 on a $299,000 price property? What does that do for you? Yes, sir.
Do y'all not look at the square footage, what it sells for?
Price per square foot? I actually do not. You won't learn that from me. Because most buyers nowadays look at the overall price. They don't look at the price per square foot. The only time, and that's actually a great leadway into this, because I know we've got about 4 minutes left, and I can stay here longer and ask questions. We can do some samples. I'm fine with that. What I do is, over here is what's called a quick CMA. Now, do not use this first. Just picture me slapping your hand. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay? This is last. After you pretty much get your range in place, then you can check yourself. You go to the quick CMA. Okay, and what the quick CMA does is just gives you a picture. Okay? So it takes out, which I love because it'll also take out your actives. It'll separate those two so you can compare. So let's go ahead and do, well, actually this says it. At $299,900, it was $122.71 a square foot. Now, and of course that was last year, but if I were looking at the market this year, I'm going to look at all the solds. Okay, so we already know that the average sales price for everything here sold was $305.64. Okay, and the one that really did that was that $318,000, but if you actually take that down, because it really didn't sell for $318,000 overall, then this would be under $300. Okay, so you may cross that out and redo that if you wanted. But if you look at the price per square foot, and I said this is $122,000. I look at what everything was listed at $122,000. The average, where am I at, is $120.25. So I'm actually at just a touch above average. However, what did I tell you? I have all these upgrades, new countertops, right? Maybe they're really nice. Who knows? So that might justify that on the average. Okay, and that was sold, and actually it was listed for, oh no, it was listed for $122.71 a square foot, if you will. So that's pretty much on average for all $121.46, so it's right about par. Okay, I'm right on, because you know who looks at price per square foot? The appraiser. That's the only person who looks at price per square foot anymore, unless you watch HGTV. Stop it. Stop it. Unless you're looking to do some cool DIY, stop it. Okay? Okay, and then of course we sold for more price per square foot at 126 because why though? We were 7 days on market. Correlation, right? Okay, so you're just checking to make sure that you fit. And of course, you typically wouldn't have the sold data for this. You'd only have, okay, we're about 122 a square foot. The average is 121.46 a square foot. We should be right on par based on the square footage, the age of the homes, and the upgrades. Does that make sense? Do you understand checking your work? This is like your math. I don't know if any of you taught before, but in math class where your teacher's like, make sure you check your work. This is a good place to go to check for the appraisal purposes. But again, I tell you that a house is not worth anything more than what a seller's willing to sell and a buyer's willing to buy, and the market telling the appraiser, if it's a financing product, that it's right where it should be, right? Because of course the lender's got to make sure it's a good deal for them as well. Any questions on everything that we've talked about?
What were the 3 summary things about when you can check it based on the...
You check on the average price per square foot, the average list price, and then you can, and then the average days on market. So the average days on market in that area right now are 78. Yikes, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I can tell you I could expand my search to a little bit higher because there's a lot of properties that are built that are about 2,800 to 3,000 square feet. We get a total different picture of what this looks like, okay? But that's because I know the market. If we were talking about something I didn't know, then I would only know this. Okay, so just make sure you kind of, if you want to expand your search and see where things at, if something smaller is selling for more, something bigger is selling for less, then that would be appropriate.
Well, as a general rule, the smaller the house, the more it is per square foot.
Right, which is why I say not to really look at the price per square foot, but look at that overall price point because that could make a difference. Mm-hmm. So.
I always give a range. I never give a specific.
Perfect.
And I say you can choose. The higher you go, the longer it's going to take to sell.
Yes.
And the fewer people that'll look at it.
Correct. Correct. So she's saying she always gives a range. I implore you, please always give a range. Don't give an exact number because if it doesn't sell for that exact number, whoo,
you're dead meat.
Whoo, that hurts. And you know, guys, there's going to be a time that you get this wrong. Use it as a, there's going to be a time that your seller out negotiates you. And so just remember that when you're going back. So, okay, one more thing. I know we're a little bit over. Do I have your permission for about 3 more minutes? Because I want to make sure I answered everyone's question. The first question was Cesar asking, doing a price adjustment. Remember that if every 2 weeks that your house is on the market, your seller's on the market, you should be doing another market analysis so you know what's on the market, what has sold, if any pendings went to sold, and what the ones that are also active, what your competition is. Because you don't necessarily want to be the highest price or the lowest price in the market, right? Supply and demand. So we want to make sure that we're priced well. So you should be checking your properties every 2 weeks and having that conversation. Hey, just want to let you know, sellers, that this is what the market's looking like this week. If we don't get so many more showings, then we're going to have to do a price reduction. Okay? And you should have 10 showings and an offer. Or if you don't have 10 showings and an offer, or 2 weeks and not having 10 showings, then you're overpriced. The house could smell, it could have weird paint color, all of those things. It doesn't matter. If it's priced right, price will overcome anything. Okay. Remind me what else we wanted to talk about. Did I hit all your points?
I asked about tax.
Oh, tax protest. So when you're doing this, what you're really focusing on for tax purposes, right, is you're focusing on the fact that they're selling this low. If they bought higher and the market is showing lower comps, you want to show why, the days on market, and possibly what the difference is. If they're selling higher and they don't have the same upgrades, you want to show that in the comps. Look, all these have stainless steel appliances, all these have granite countertops, yours does not. Okay? Does that make sense? So it's kind of the opposite of what you're looking for. Amy.
Something that comes up, and I learned last year, I guess, not my first year. When people homestead,
Uh-huh.
and they think, oh, my taxes can only go up 10%, that's the maximum if I've got homestead. Two things. Land, not included in that, so the appraisal district can just say, we think your land was 25,000 last year, this year it's 60,000.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
above and beyond that 10%. And the other part of that is if anybody does a renovation or a remodel or an add-on, especially in the city of Austin when it has to be permitted, they will increase your tax on that based
Yep.
on your addition. And I had a friend who said, well, I wouldn't have added my, addition on my house if I'd known that was gonna happen. So just if you have
What-
clients that are
Yeah.
thinking about that or have done that, to protest that, you can go in and say, well, I only added this or I closed in my garage, it's not even, but the city thinks or the county thinks
Right.
you've done.
Because they look at price per square foot.
Well, and pictures and receipts.
Yes.
They
Yes.
go protest.
Yes. Perfect. Any other questions? Do y'all feel like this was valuable for you? Did you get a lot out of it?
Yes.
Are you walking out of here with more knowledge than you came in?
Absolutely.
Okay. If you have any confusion, please do not be shy. This is a technique that you're going to have to practice. So that means go get more listings, right? Go more listings, and but really, if you want to practice or you want to talk about it or really understand it, just let me know. I'm happy to meet with you. Okay. Have a great day. If you want, I'm happy to stay here. If you have a property you want to run a market analysis on, you're welcome.